what's up, guys? This is Marseille, aka the Property Pastor, here with Kingdom Legacy Builders, where our mission is to help everyday people to build a lasting legacy for their children and their children's children using real estate and wealth building principles. Today, I want to pick back up on our private money guide, and we've been talking in this series about how to use private money to do real estate investing deals, how to invest in real estate through private money. Now, a private money lender is not a bank. It's not a hard money lender, but a private money lender is an individual who lends their money to people to invest in real estate. And they're out there. You can actually kind of create them, so to speak. A private money lender is essentially a person to person often, and that person will set up a promissory note for whatever, any amount of money, and actually loan funds through their means to an investor who then goes and pays them back over time. And what it allows the investor to do is it basically allows the investor to have access to cash that's not going to show up in a credit report. It's got speed, it's got flexibility, all these things that we talked about in the intro video. But that private money lender is a great person to have, or great people to have in your portfolio to help you to do more deals. And one of the questions that I often get, today we're going to talk about two main questions. The first question is, should I have a deal first and then get the private money, or should I set up the private money and then go find a deal? The second question is going to be, what kind of deal is actually a good candidate for a private money lender to invest in? But before we get started, make sure that you subscribe to this channel. If you haven't done so already, make sure you stop and subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, even hit that share button so that you can share the video with somebody else who needs to hear it. We're here bringing great content every single week to you to help you to grow your business, to build that legacy for your children and your children's children. So let's start with the first question that I get when it comes to private money. One of the first questions I get, rather, is, should I get the deal first and then go find private money, or should I basically have the private money already lined up and then go and get the deal? So I typically recommend people to have the deal first and then go and look for the money. And the reason for that is basically, if somebody's going to invest money with you, they want to be able to see something. Two of the main ingredients for success in raising private money is going to be your character, and then it's going to be your competency. Right? So your character is really about you delivering, you being a person of honesty, integrity, making sure your lender gets paid. But then the competence is basically you showing that you know what you're doing. One of the worst things you could ever do is go and say, hey, I'm raising money for this project. And then after the person, that you go and set up a promissory note, XYZ, and then come to find out you have no deal. Right? So when you're starting out, it's best, in my opinion, to go ahead and have a deal lined up. Now, this may be like a rehab project. It may be a fix and flip. It could be a BRRRR deal, right? So these kind of things you already have in place. And at that point, you're just going and you're raising funds to do the rehab. So you can go ahead and secure the property, have that already locked up. But then the rehab portion of the project, you can go and get a private money lender. Now, granted, a hard money lender will, most of the time, they'll fund the purchase and the rehab for you. But one of the issues you're going to run into with hard money lenders is that they're extremely expensive. They're money, you could be paying 1 to 4 points on the loan. You could be paying upwards of 10 to 14%. Private money lenders often don't charge points. Some of them do, but a lot of them that I deal with don't charge any points. Some of them don't even know what points are, right? So they're not charging points. They're not having all these extra fees. And the other part about that private money, the hard money lender rather, is if you go ahead and group in the loan and you group in the rehab, you're going to be paying interest on both from day number one. Right, so that's one of the things that you're going to run into. With a private money lender, you can structure things so they're not quite as bad. So I think you kind of come out cheaper with a private money lender and a lot more flexibility with them. So I recommend that you go ahead and have the deal in hand and then go and find the funds. And the reason, like I said, is most people will invest in something they can see. Now, if you got a lot of credibility, you can show I've done these 10 deals, whatever that looks like. People are a lot more apt to say, yep, this person knows what they're doing. But when you're starting out, just building that relationship, I think it's more important to go ahead and have a deal in hand that you can bring to a private money lender and essentially say, here's the deal that you are investing in. This is the house. This is the address. These are the numbers, right? That lender is going to be a lot more confident in investing into something they can actually see. They can actually go visit versus you just telling them, yep, I got a deal. Come on and invest. right? So I think that's very important. But once you're trying to show that credibility, or you've done multiple deals with that private money lender, then it's a whole different scenario at that point. So that's one of the first things I definitely recommend, is to have the deal and then go find the money, instead of finding the money and then trying to look for a deal. Now, even though you're going to kind of wait to find your lender until you have a deal in hand, it's still a really good idea to do some upfront legwork. And what I mean by that is go ahead and talk to those potential candidates and let them know that what you are doing, and saying, hey, I'm actively looking at like 4 deals. Right, and one of those deals is gonna flesh out within the next 1 to 2 months. Is that something that you would be interested in earning a lucrative return on? You know, I don't tell people, would you be interested in loaning me money? Because that's not really, yes, they're doing a loan, but at the end of the day, we're creating a win-win and allowing them to be a bank. So typically in that scenario, I may talk to, some potential private money lenders and say, hey, look, I've got several deals lined up. I'm looking at these 3 properties, these 4 properties, whatever they are, and essentially say, are these something that you may be interested in? So you want to kind of do that upfront legwork, so you're not starting from scratch. Because the last thing you want to do is get stuck. Say, for example, you got enough money to buy the property, but you don't have enough money for the rehab. I think that's a fixable problem. You can typically find that money, but still it can create a whole lot of stress for you. So definitely do that upfront legwork to try to kind of pre-qualify, quote unquote, those private money lenders. Another question that I get that I wanted to deal with is, what type of projects are good for private money loans? And the 3 main projects I want to talk about are really fix and flips, BRRRR deals, and buy and holds. Okay, so a fix and flip, for those of you who may not have heard that term, is what you're going to see on HGTV and some of the things that come on television, where basically people go in and they buy a property that's in distress. It may look like a hoarder house. It may be a fire damage, whatever. And you basically the investor buys that house, they fix it up, and then they go and they sell it, which is what they mean by they flip it, right? So they buy it low, fix it up, and then they sell it. So fix and flips are one. And then the BRRRR process, it means you buy a property, you rehab the property, you go and rent it out, you refinance it, and then you repeat the process all over again. Kind of like a flip, but instead of flipping it and selling it on the open market or selling it to a buyer, you're basically holding on to it and renting it out. So that's probably the biggest difference that between a fix and flip and between a BRRRR. But then there's a true buy and hold, where you're not really doing a lot of work to it. You're just going and buying that property, and then essentially going through and finding a renter for it. All right, so the first example is a fix and flip. So I'm going to kind of walk through those three examples, and kind of use some numbers. So let's say, for example, we have a property, a fix and flip. Now, the ARV, or after repair value, we're going to say it's going to be $150,000. So let's say in this example, we bought the property for $75,000. So for 75 grand, we purchased the property through a hard money lender. And then we went in, we found ourselves a private money lender who loaned us $25,000 for our repairs. So I got a 75 grand loan with my hard money lender. I got a 25 grand loan with my private lender. And we won't even go into the terms and things like that. But what happens is, once we go through and repair the property, the repair may take us, 6 months, for example. So after 6 months, right, we've now got an ARV of $150,000. So purchase price, we put in 75. Our hard money lender put in 75. Our private money lender put in 25. So once I sell the property and subtract everything, we're not even going to, we'll just make the math easy. We're not going to worry about the commissions. We're not going to worry about the holding costs, all of that stuff. Those are totally different calculations outside of this conversation. But basically, we would have created $50,000 extra, right? So that 50, if we didn't have to pay all that other stuff, would come back to us. So we would go in and we would pay off our hard money lender, we pay off our private money lender, and then we'd have $50,000 to pay everything else. Now, out of that will come our taxes, our electricity, what we had to pay our agent to sell the property, et cetera, and then taxes next year and all that kind of stuff. So, but again, 75 will go back to the hard money lender, 25 to the private money lender, and then 50 would have been created. Right, so that makes that a really good example of how you can easily go into a property with really not using a lot of your money when it's all said and done, and walk away with a profit in hand. Now, the second example would be a BRRRR deal. Now, remember, in a BRRRR deal, the difference between a flip is that instead of me selling it on the open market, I'm going to hold on to it myself. So in the example of the BRRRR deal, we're going to use those same numbers. We got $150,000 ARV. And in this example, our hard money lender gave us $75,000 to purchase the property. Our private money lender gave us 25 to fix it up. And then after 6 months or so, we got to fix it up. We put a renter in place. And the example here, the biggest difference is instead of us going and selling it on the open market through an agent, we are going to go to a bank, a local bank, and put an actual loan on the property. So when we put the note on the property, the bank's not going to give us the full amount. So in our example of 150K of ARV, they're only going to loan us 120K because that is 80% of the purchase price. Now, depending on the kind of loan, if you're doing commercial, a lot of times that'll only be 75, but for this example, we'll say 80K. So now there's a bank loan for 80%, rather not 80K, 80%, which is $120,000. So what happens now at this point, we go back and we take that $120,000 check, which is a tax-free check, and we're going to go and we're going to pay off our hard money loan. We're going to pay off our private money lender. And then essentially we're going to now just pay the bank on the $120,000 using the tenant. So the tenant's going to pay that note, and then the whatever is left over after the note and expenses, that is the cash flow that we keep. Now the beautiful part about it is when it's all said and done, none of that was actually our money. So that's the wonderful part about the BRRRR process, and then on the other side, the flip process. If you're doing a flip though, you just get a check, right? And once that check's gone, it's gone. But with a BRRRR, you can actually do a BRRRR sometimes where you can get a check and you get the cash flow, and all of it's tax free. So the third group is buy and hold. Now I typically don't recommend folks use a lot of private money for buy and holds unless they're purchasing equity, unless they're buying a great deal. And what happens here, if we use our same example of $150,000 in a $150,000 loan, 20% has got to be paid down. So the bank's only going to finance 80%. So that means you have to come with 20%. So if you found a private money lender and say, hey, can I have, 30,000 in this example to purchase a property? What's going to happen there is you're going to put a 30,000 loan with a private money lender. The bank is going to put a 120. But in this instance, the bank is going to be first position. The bank will never, very rarely, if ever, take second position on a loan. So now you're going to have two notes, the first one for 120 and then the second one for 30. The problem with that is that typically properties cannot cash flow enough to support both notes. So what will happen is, once you're paying, and depending on how you structure, if you try to structure where you pay off your private money lender on the down payment, it's got to be paid off relatively quick, or you'll never cash flow positive. So in that example, you really have to have a ton of equity. So you got to find a killer deal. That's the only time that having a private money lender to help you with the down payment really works. Because in this example, what would happen is that typically your bank loan on 120K, if we use about a 5% interest rate, which I know that's higher than where we are right now, but just general math, right, it would be about $640 a month. Well, then if you had a 30K loan with a private money lender, you could be paying anywhere from $160 to $200 a month. Now, by the time you actually did all your other expenses, and depending on where rents are, where you live, it's difficult to be able to cash flow positive in that scenario. So I recommend for buy and hold deals, you don't typically use a private money lender unless you are buying into a great deal. And a great deal means you have a ton of equity. So in that example, you could later refinance out and then pay off your private money lender. But those typically don't always happen. They're not the easiest to find. So typically, having a private money lender in place works best on kind of loans that are shorter in term, and they're going to be tied to either a fix and flip or a BRRRR deal. That's where private money really comes in handy. So I wanted to just talk about, those are some questions that I typically get. Should I have the money first or should I get the deal first? And then also, what kind of projects are good fits for private money loans? So if you have questions, make sure you drop them in the questions section. Drop your comments down there. Again, make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel. We're dropping brand new content every single week to help you to build that legacy for your children and your children's children. Again, ask me your questions. I respond to them. I make sure that they all get answered if they're good questions that everybody can benefit from. We even do special videos based on some of the questions, and we make sure we shout you out too. So thanks again for tuning in to today's video. Thanks again for just hanging out and supporting the Property Pastor. Love you guys. I can't wait to talk to you again soon. God bless. Be safe, and I'll see you again soon.